Welcome to the Impact Players Linking Shields podcast with your host, Warren Maynard and John Beasley. Our mission is simple, inspiring men to be great husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most.
Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Impact Players Linking Shields podcast. The Linking Shields podcast is all about connecting with other men who are fighting the good fight to try to inspire others to be good husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most. If that's something that you're passionate about or interested in, you've come to the right place. We've got an amazing guest today, a new friend of mine, Kevin Goodnight, who is the author and founder of the book and the ministry Dad Voted, which is all about developing devoted dads. Kevin is a husband, he's a father, he's a leader, he's a great speaker and author, and he's got an amazing story to share with us. And Kevin, I looked on your website and I saw that the mission of Dad Voted is developing devoted dads for multi-generational impact. So we definitely are sharing in a very similar mission and have a very similar heart. So I'd love for you just to take a little moment to introduce yourself, and then we're going to ask you to share your story with the guys in a few minutes.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, I'm sitting here pumping my fist on that intro. So come on.
Yeah.
Look, I close so many of my either long form posts or videos with all about impact and influence. And I'm as you can tell, alliteration just kind of spews. It's I don't know. I'm a keep it simple kind of guy, but and I'm honored today to be on the show, and just I think a long overdue connection with me and you. We had a great chat last week, and I'm also coming off quite a mountaintop high. I was with 15 other dudes this weekend in North Carolina in the mountains. I'm a Texas guy, but I went up to the hills of Carolina, and man, even today, my dentist said, she said, your blood pressure is so low. You're so calm. I said, yeah, I've just had a beautiful weekend with no cell phone service. So man, yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be here. Excited to, man, I hope we impact and challenge 1 million men today, but even if it's one, we're doing God's work and glorifying him, man. So
Absolutely. Well, I had such a pleasure getting to hear some of your story when we spoke on the phone last week. And, you know, there's a lot of different directions we could go in with this conversation today. Your life, your story, your testimony has a lot of breadth and width to it. But I want to narrow in on a certain component of your story that I think really resonates with a lot of men. I have these conversations with men all the time, both online and in person. And so as we kind of spent time hearing each other's stories the other day, one of the themes that came out of that was your journey of leaving alcohol in order to pursue mission. And I'd love for you to maybe just to kind of pull back a little bit and share a little bit of your story and maybe how that particular theme has brought you to the place where you are now, where you're investing in men and inspiring dads to be great fathers who can pass on a legacy to their sons.
yeah, man, there's a lot to unpack, and I really think, we're all about men. We talk about your purpose, we talk about your calling, and then as you become, especially in the believer segment, we talk about identity. So there's this whole thing in manhood that's like, what's my purpose? What's my calling? What's my platform? What's my identity? And I believe all of us do have that life assignment. And for me, I was a corporate guy running teams, and even through that, as we learn more through this session about how Dad Voted came to be, I believe that my corporate job was my platform and part of my purpose for the kingdom. And it was, and it held that for many, many years. But unfortunately, a lot of that was me building my own kingdom. So it was two fingers pointing about me. bigger, faster, stronger, grow, grow, grow. I love the Lord. I mean, I've had a relationship with the Lord for years and decades, but I always had that one foot in the world, kind of following what we're supposed to do. Control, comfort, the paycheck. Not a bad dude, but just kind of wayward at times, with very, very self-centered focus. But and then throughout all of that, anytime there was either condemnation or even convicting, I was convicted at church, or anytime there was a corporate fast, it was always that, what's holding me back? And it was alcohol. It was a stronghold of 20 years. Some seasons of ups and downs, but really the last 8 to 10 years, it took over. And I look at how men are, and how men, we're in our 20s and just trying to establish ourselves, and we get to our 30s and these kids come, and it's like, holy smokes, I'm just blinders on. And you do this thing called fatherhood, and then all of a sudden the job gets a little easier, the promotions come, the money comes, and then you just keep on, those strongholds continue to come, because maybe money wasn't that big of a deal. And that was kind of my story. Served in ministry, did a lot of things, but there was always that crutch of alcohol abuse that came in, and it ran in my family. And so when I kind of bring this full circle, because I know you have a lot of questions around it, but I knew I would never ever walk in my God-given calling and my purpose if I didn't get rid of the stronghold of alcohol abuse. And then through that, God uncovered who I am, gave me a new identity. I'm a child of God, but there's also a specific identity that who he wants to call you. And he calls me a leader of dads. Now, look, I know we're 4 minutes into this conversation, and guys are like, who is this guy calling himself a leader of dads? But the journey to get from where I was to where I am, and I asked God, who do you call me? And he says, you're a leader of dads. So I think that's the biggest thing about men, being on mission, is knowing who you are, and knowing what you've been called to do. And that's kind of the very, very big, broad picture of kind of my ministry and mission.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think a lot of times when we think about the role of alcohol in people's lives, especially like at a young age, alcohol kind of is uh, a part of living this, over the top, boisterous life, partying, showing up with a large group of people, and being the center of the party, and kind of letting off steam and all that kind of things. And then, for a lot of men, they kind of move out of that party phase, but alcohol kind of transitions into more of a coping type of a mechanism. Like, I need this to, in order to kind of settle down at the end of the day, or to calm my nerves, or to kind of numb myself from some of the things that I'm feeling anxious or upset about. So, as you made that journey, from your 20s there into your 30s, how did that mindset around alcohol maybe kind of shift as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. I was taught, you drink, you have fun, you work hard, you play hard, right? That was kind of the mentality. I had mentors. I mean, one of my mentors, I remember being in my mid-20s, first job out of college, so I'm probably 23. I get a call from a boss who I adore as a person, as a really good boss. But this, after I tell this story, people may think differently. But this is what we did. He called me. I was in Arizona one day, and he said, "You meet me at the bar at the MGM Hotel in Las Vegas tonight at 9 o'clock, or I'm firing you." And I'm like, "Well, I'm in Tucson. I have nothing." He's like, "Get to the nearest airport, jump on a Southwest flight. Don't bring anything. If you're not here by 9 o'clock tonight, I'm firing you." And I got there 9 o'clock, and we played hard. And so it was just kind of that. And he was my mentor, right? I mean, it was a work hard, play hard mentality. And then that starts to creep up as you get into now I get into my 30s. I'm 32, 33, and I get called to run a business. And now I'm the man, and it starts to shift. At first, it's like entertaining customers, but then it becomes more of that coping. There was always a day to celebrate. There was always a day to drown your sorrows. 2 hours a day commuting, 55, 60 hours a week, high pressure corporate mentality of winning, all things that we think we live for. And yeah, it was self-medicating, and it was a way to disappear, escape, and again, love my family, love the Lord, but it was just one of those that I just kept coming back to. And I had this crazy calling where I told my wife, I think the Lord's going to show up big during the pandemic. And then I tell her, I think I could write a book and she's like, well, I think you need to press into that. 6 months later, I go to a wedding and I pressed in. I fasted from alcohol 21 days prior to that wedding. I walk into that wedding, and a lady I've never met before says, you're going to write a book one day, and it's going to impact the kingdom. And so you kind of have this full circle moment of, okay, I've got this calling. I'm going to write this book. I'm not an author. Who writes books even? I'm a business guru. And now God gives you a task. And then I went on 10 months of just complete disobedience. And it was one of those things like, when do you write a book? I told you, big business, running the largest division of a company in there, and I commute 2 hours. So you either write it at night or you write it in the morning. Well, you're drinking at night, you're foggy in the morning. I could never walk in my calling. I could never walk in my purpose. Flip side to that, I have a buddy who's been walking. Been walking with him on his sobriety journey. And he called me and said, hey, I stopped drinking 4 weeks ago. The Lord told me, where I'm taking you, you can't be addicted. 6 months later, he's in front of a new employer, and the employer said, hey, I just want to tell you, my vision for my executive team is that whoever walks with me can't be addicted. And he tells him his story. I'm 6 months sober, and this is where I'm at. And it was a faith-based owner of this company. He hands him an offer letter, and it was doubled his salary. And again, this is not a prosperity message, so don't take it. You may have lost a couple more people on here, but it was just, again, it was God saying, where I'm taking you, you can't be addicted. And then that was confirmed 6 months later. And that was for me. This mission, this ministry, Dad Voted, developing devoted dads, this would have never happened if I hadn't uncovered the stronghold, released the stronghold, and walked in freedom from this stronghold.
Yeah. So, you've shared a little bit of maybe how that role of alcohol was kind of hindering you from fulfilling the calling. And it sounds like all along you've been going to church, you've been trying to follow the Lord. You've been trying to be a husband and a dad as well. So, was there any moment in this journey where you kind of were experiencing any sense of guilt or shame about the role of alcohol as it related to not being the man or the dad, the husband that you wanted to be?
Yeah, every morning, because I still have quiet time. I'm still getting up and having my quiet time, and there was daily just pleading with the Lord, like, Lord, make this taste like bile. That was one of my prayers. Like, and then every 2 or 3 months, my wife in tears going, Kevin, you have so much, you have a calling, and you're majorly influential in people's lives. You're a huge encourager. Why do you continue to let this? And then it stemmed to her saying, this will be passed on to our kids potentially. It was generational in my family. And we don't need to get too deep into that, but even in my journey of that, uncovering this, one of my final divine, I have like 3 or 4 divine appointments, so good. But one of them was a buddy telling me just that. My wife was praying, God, give Kevin a man to speak into his life. And Antoine, a guy who worked for me, came into our office and said, man, I got to talk to you. You have this calling on your life. You know how many believers will walk the face of this earth? Men who love God and never know their calling. You know yours. What's holding you back? I said, man, I'm drinking 6, 7 nights a week. He said, you have to stop, or this will carry to your boys. I then go get in my car, turn on my podcast. It says tomorrow's podcast, attacking the curses of generational sin. So it was just, the Lord was just, hitting me in the face with this thing time after time. And it took me, I look back now, years and years of just holding on, 2 years with having my calling before I finally admitted that I had a stronghold and got help. And I did. I checked into a faith-based recovery program, and I'm sitting at last month, was 2 years, man. I'm coming up on 25 months of not even, the desire gone. And the Lord removed it. On day 1 of sobriety, he told me to wait. I said, okay, I can wait. I haven't waited ever, right? It's all about me. It's about here. It's here. On day 40, I hear the word dad voted. I'm praying, what do you want to call this? I got this book. It's like 10% of a manuscript. It's not about raising boys like I thought. It's about how to be a better dude. What do you want to call this? And I heard the word dad voted. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Devoted dads. Okay, developing devoted dads. And I love the alliteration.
Yeah.
I was scared to death. I Googled it. Domain popped up. Never bought a domain in my life. Buy the domain. A week later, I'm meeting with a trademark lawyer. 4 months later, I have a full manuscript to the publisher. And 5 months after that, I've got the book. Dad voted. Dad's devoted to discovering their duty, direction, and destiny. And here's the thing. Cute title, all the D's, everything like that. I just asked the Lord for the name of a book. And he said, I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to give you the name of a mission, and a movement, and a ministry for dads. And that was, I was 40 years old, and on day 40 of sobriety, he gave me that. So it's just cool. Everybody knows the number 40, and I'm not comparing myself to Moses or Christ, but God still uses the number 40. I got chills. I've told this story, Warren, 200 times in the last year. And it still gets me that emotional and choked up. That's the God of our universe, who's spoken in creation with his words, and a peon like me that is struggling with alcohol. He says, I got something for you, man, and buckle up and gear up and get ready. And dude, it's to the degree where I walked away from corporate 6 months ago. All the big boy money, control, comfort, the title, all the things. And I literally said, God, I don't know where I'm going, but I know I need to leave. And that's kind of my heart. My mission is not to tell men to walk away from corporate. We need men in the trenches in corporate America. But I knew I had to leave. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going full throttle, completely out of the boat. Lord, lead me, guide me, and help me along the way. And the adventure's been so rich, met so many cool people, including you and the men I was with this weekend. And there's a lot of bright spots ahead.
Welcome to Impact Players, where we inspire men to be great husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most. Are you asking yourself, how do I become a better man? How can I grow as a husband and father? Can I succeed both at work and at home? We believe the answer is yes. Impact Players provides rock-solid answers and practical tools for men who want to improve in every area of life. Whether you're single, married, a new dad, or a grandfather, our men's groups, leadership training, and resources will help you thrive. Recent studies show men are struggling more than ever. That's why Impact Players is here. We offer cohorts where you can connect with real men like you, courses with actionable steps, and a nationwide community dedicated to winning at home and at work. Join our online community today and access a wealth of materials designed for your growth. Transform your life, impact your family, business, and community. Ready to get started? Visit impactplayers.org now. Be the man you are destined to be with Impact Players.
Man, that is amazing. And before we get any further in this, I just need to say something for our guys that are listening, because Kevin, obviously what you're doing is amazing, and you're all in, you're sold out. You pushed all the chips into the center of the table, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But I think sometimes guys think, oh, well, if I'm going to have an impact, then, I need to do something like what Kevin's doing. And yet I'm thinking about that guy, Antoine, that walked into your office and said, bro, you got to get this area in your life taken care of. And to me, that's just as much of an impact player as the guy that's, doing a ministry full time. And I think that's something that a lot of our men need to hear, is that, maybe it is God's calling for you to do something grand, like, writing a book or starting a ministry or something like that. But what if you're the guy that inspires the guy that writes the book? And I think that's just a great testimony that, whether you're listening to this, episode or not, and you're thinking about, the role of alcohol in your life, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but it could be that you're also thinking about the role of alcohol in another man's life.
Yeah.
And what God is saying to you right now is you've got to be that Antoine to walk into an office and say, brother, I need to talk to you about this issue in your life. And that's what, iron sharpening iron is really all about. And so let's talk about kind of your message to men who feel like alcohol has gained too much influence in their lives. You shared in your story about how, I don't know, for years you were waking up in the morning and you were praying this prayer and asking God to change you, and yet nothing was changing. So maybe there's guys out there right now that are listening and they're kind of in that same boat where they're like, yeah, I know there's something that needs to change and I want it to change, but yet it's not changing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's both science and spiritual. It's kind of both, and I'm maybe losing all kinds of people today, but
No, not at all.
it's both, man. It's one of those things you have to picture yourself in 5 years, 10 years from now. Like what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your kids to remember you for? I mean, we think about this retirement mindset. It's like, no, it's a multi-generational legacy mindset. We're thinking 5, 6, 7 generations down the road, and we have the ability to rewrite our genealogy. And I look at that as one of the coolest things. In so many areas of my life, I'm generation one. And I've got a great family. I love my family, love my father, great dad. But in some areas, I'm Gen 1. I'm Gen 1 in setting mission, vision, and values. I'm Gen 1 in attacking alcohol abuse. So I really try to get men to kind of capture their head around the why, looking out, big picture. And then I look at what has God called you to do. And I talking to a gentleman the other day, I said, it's even almost if money was no option, but even just in general, what do you think God's called you to do? He's like, well, I used to be a teacher. And I want to go back into youth group ministry, but I know I can never do youth group ministry if I have this stronghold. And another guy I'm working with, I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to speak to young athletes so that they never go through what I went through, all the pain of womanizing and almost losing it all and all this. And he goes, but God won't take me there until I get rid of this stronghold. And that is where I start. What has God called you? I don't know. Okay. Well, what are you good at? Right? God's not he might call you to something crazy, but he's still going to use you within the parameters of your context and your just internal wiring. If you're good with IT, there's something you can do to serve the kingdom. If you're good with kids, there's something for you to serve the kingdom. I have a guy who he said he compares himself to in the wars in like Africa, I think way back when like they would bring elephants and lions in to clear the path, and then the king or whoever would come in behind. He goes, that's who I am. I come in and I pave ways so guys like me, guys like you can speak on stages, can do things, and that fits who he is. So that's really what I start with men is do you want to quit? Right? Do you want to change? And then the science types to that. I mean, there's so much about the brain and how it works. And alcohol is literal poison. And I know we'll talk more about biblical alcohol as one of the questions you sent me, but it is literally processing in your body and turning into poison. Then your tolerance gets up, and then your money may not be an option for you. And it just becomes part of your life. I mean, think about it. It's Margarita Monday, it's Tequila Tuesday, it's Wine Down or Whiskey Wednesday, it's Thirsty Thursday. I mean, there's a shirts and drinking for every Sunday fun day. I mean, there's Saturday, I don't know, there's Fridays, you name it. There's alcohol's become just the norm. It's what you do.
Yeah.
And we look at how do you make a stand of where you you need to change. This is no longer fun. You look at yourself, and 80-90% of the time, it's you doing it by yourself. And that was also my deal. And there's kind of two types of people: those who drink and kind of just get tired, and those who drink and amp up. And those who drink and amp up are more likely to just continue down that path of alcohol abuse disorder, amongst all the other neuroscience, all those. I got a good degree, but I'm not very smart when it comes to all that stuff. But yeah, that's kind of my journey, how I talk and walk with guys that are just on the fence. Sober curious is a lot. I get a lot of guys that are sober curious as a
Yeah,
term.
yeah, that's good. And you definitely have a life degree. So
Yeah.
you've got a lot to offer on this conversation for sure. And again, for us and our men, Impact Players is all about inspiring men to be great husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most. And I think any man that wants to win as a husband, father, and leader, who wants to win at home as well as win at work, you've always got to look at, like, if you're thinking like from a sports perspective, you've always got to look at, okay, what are those things that might be hindering me from, running as fast as I can, executing at the best level that I can, thinking clearly when the game is on the line. And obviously, alcohol can have an impact on your ability uh, to be able to execute on your mission and your purpose as a husband, father, and leader. So now you've been sober for 2 years. Um, where are you seeing maybe new levels of excellence in your marriage, in your family, as a husband, father? Where are you seeing yourself, growing in ways that you thought, man, like, okay, I thought I was doing pretty good, but now I'm seeing a new level that I didn't even know was there.
Yeah, it's even on my website, I have a 52 benefits of stopping alcohol. And
Mm.
and I haven't broken it out. It's literally just a spirit led. I wrote it down in 20 minutes. So there's probably a formula to it all, but the mental health, the body, the physical health, the spiritual health, all the financial health. I spent 6 to 8 grand a year drinking, dude. Like, like from restaurants to all the things, vacations, and all that. You start looking at what I could have done with 10 years of 8 grand, just invested properly, or bought land, or just whatever. But biggest thing is my marriage is strong. There are no lies in my family. My
Mm.
relationships with my kids know my struggle. They've seen the Lord show up. So now they have that piece. So when they are challenged on their faith, not if, when, they can say, I saw the Lord show up in my dad's life. He was here, then God, now he's here.
Yeah.
And I hope God, and my prayer is that God does that in their own lives as well, so that when their faith is challenged, 70% of kids walk away from their faith their freshman year. I think me and you both have been intermixedly using that stat in our social media. And so that's the richest part. I feel better. I sleep better. I'm more intimate with my wife. I mean, all the things that just like, it's a plus, 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 plus. It's like, why would anxiety gone? I mean, it's just all these things. I hear from the Lord more.
Mm.
I don't stress over stupid stuff. So I mean, there's probably what 38 more benefits. I just rattled off like 12.
Yeah.
But that's really the kicker. And I just go, why would you go back? And look, I'd love to admit, I'd love to cook a big fat steak with a beautiful glass of cab. I just know I can't. And I know that it will. And I see more men who try to quit for a couple months and then have that one glass, and they go right back downhill because they like that feeling, that dopamine, serotonin, all the things that come invading in, and then the enemies at work, and before you know it, they're back struggling. And that's what we don't want men. We want men to walk in freedom. The
Mhm.
Lord wants men to live in freedom. What is it? It is for freedom that Christ has set us free.
Right.
And so that's the mission of anybody that wants men. If it's Impact Ministries, if it's Dad Voted, if it's Better Men, all these. Our goal is just that. How do we get men free so they can
Mhm.
hear from the Lord, thrive in their marriage, and lead where they're going to lead? The secondary part is, when I got clear-minded, my business skyrocketed. It went better because I was leading better, I was delegating better, I was hiring better.
Yeah.
At Fridays, I used to just get in that office and be dead tired. I was more energized. I was like, I don't even know what day of the week is. I just know I celebrate Sabbath one day a week. Other than that, every day is a day to impact, my friend.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's amazing. And I know, like, you mentioned you're living in Texas. I currently live in Seattle, making a transition to South Carolina, but in different parts of the country, there are definitely different attitudes and perspectives about alcohol. I remember when I first started out in ministry in my late teens, early 20s. It was just not something that you would ever see or expect ministers to, drink alcohol, especially in certain denominations. And yet now, I've literally had pastors who have told me, "Hey, if you really want to, make an impact in the lives of men, you've got to start drinking." Um, and so here's the point that I'm kind of getting to, and I want to get your insight on is that everywhere you go, when you meet with other men and even women, social settings, there are going to be people who have a different, you know, position or comfort level when it comes to alcohol. There are those that are like, "Hey, I can drink responsibly. It's no big deal." There are those that are like, "Hey, I'm kind of sober curious." There are those that are like, teetotalers, like they don't want anything to do with alcohol at all. So, knowing your story, how do you kind of walk through those social environments in a way where you're, staying close to your convictions, and yet at the same time not coming off as judgmental
Right.
or harsh towards people that may not be in the same place that you're in?
Yeah, man, that's a great. I think a lot of people get too hung up on the all that legalism and this and that and don't do this and don't do that and look, I don't believe alcohol overall. I don't think it's awful. I just think it's the abuse of it that's awful. Just like anything, money, right? It's not the root of all evil. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And so I just look. I mean, look, if we for the believer, we look at it from a scripture standpoint. Okay, what's the law of the land? All right, the law of the land says you have to be 21. Okay, the law of the land says you can't drink and drive. The law of the land says that you shouldn't give it to minors. So that's the law of the land.
Mm,
And then you look at God's law about about not drinking and being drunk. And so you start looking at all of what does God say about it as well. And so I think we can take scripture literally, physically. We can manipulate scripture. The biggest thing and the hardest scripture to unpack is um, don't do anything to cause your brother to stumble.
mm,
So you don't know what the guy going through across the way. You lead a ministry of reaching thousands of men. That one beer for you doesn't harm you. But that one beer may have a guy that's on the fence. He comes to meet Warren for the first time, and all he's like, "Oh, well, I have a hall pass." And
mm,
now that guy struggles. And you had one, it might even be a non-alcoholic beer, which I drink those. I've had those over the last 2 years. But again, as that in leadership, it's what could cause that brother to stumble. For
mm,
me, that doesn't cause me to stumble if I'm around somebody, but
mm,
that is the telltale that I always tell people. And even this weekend, they had a no alcohol policy at this men's retreat. We
mm.
had richer conversation. There was no, I mean, I think there probably could have been some guys that had a bourbon around the fire and they would have been fine. We wouldn't have had any drama, but why even risk it? Because there was a couple guys that were really still actively struggling with alcohol abuse sitting around that campfire. So that's got to be the biggest thing. It's not behavior modification. It's not legalism. It's not judgmental spirit. It's the law of the land, the law of the Lord. And then, but it's are you doing anything that could cause your brother to stumble?
Yeah, man, it's so good. Well, hey, get the guys a little bit about Dad Voted,
Yeah.
the book, the ministry, what you're doing, and just how guys can kind of follow, you in your journey over the years ahead.
Yeah, dad voted, developing devoted dads, doing a lot of things. Writing, I've got the book. So the book's on Amazon, easy to get. And I'm doing a lot more writing. I'm close to launching a devotional. We're going to call it a dad devotional. So we're sticking along that dad voted
Yeah.
theme. So I'm getting really close to having that. It's buttoned up on my side. I've got a lot of eyes looking at it. That's going to be focused around 2 Timothy 1:7. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. So the dad devotional #1 is going to be about power. I'm also doing a lot of speaking at churches, speaking at men's events. doing lots of that. And then I have kind of the online portion. I offer online courses. One's called Becoming Dad Voted. So it's just that, the practical, tangible, repeatable steps to becoming a devoted dad. I'm going to be launching a sobriety course as well. I think there's power in that. Dad Voted would not have happened if there wasn't a sobriety journey. I think one of the biggest problems I can help men solve is becoming unstuck. So I'm launching a course and coaching around that a ministry, and then my ministry will be shifting a little bit to the next generation. I have a 13-year-old. I also spent a lot of time with some 20-year-old, 22-year-old dudes this weekend, and I'm seeing that I want to reach dads, but I want to reach dudes before they become dads, right? That's if we can get them before that. So we'll see some more things come out in the future, maybe of how to help more men. Very active on LinkedIn under my name. All the other social media, I don't know, it's hard to reach, but yeah, dadvoted.com is kind of where it all starts. And yeah, man, excited for the journey of, man, complete stepping out of the boat. I don't know where my next paycheck's coming. And I'd love to sit here and say I just skip through the day. Some days I freak out a little bit. You've told me your ministry stories. I just got a $2,500 car bill. And I said, well, what's our option? He says, 2,500 or get rid of the car. And my wife and I prayed and we were like, Lord, what can we do here? And went to pick my car up today. He said it's going to be $1,000. He said I was able to get in there and fix some things. And so even though it's $1,000, the Lord provided a $1,500 reprieve. And I see his hand in so many things. Ministries that said, hey, I can't pay you to speak. And then they pay me very well when I walk out the door. And so there's a lot of things going on with that. I'm excited to see this thing in 6 months and a year from now. I don't know what it looks like. I'm partnering with another ministry about family mission, vision, and values called Legacy Stone. So there's some really cool partnerships. I don't think there's one ministry that's going to change the world. I think there's 50 to 100 of them right now that need to link arms and really go to battle together, and we'll see what happens and what God will do and use with that kind of a mindset.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what linking shields is all about. Is just to say, hey, let's do this together. We're much more effective. We're much more powerful when we've got each other's backs and we're working side by side. So, man, Kevin, let's do this as we wrap this up. I want you to speak directly to one of the men that's listening to this show, and just whatever is on your heart today, in 60 seconds, speak to the man who's listening to this show.
Man, that's so good. Here it is. The world calls addiction a stronghold. In scripture, David called the Lord his stronghold. And so there's a shift that you and I need to have, where we shift from alcohol as a stronghold, or pornography as a stronghold, or overspending as a stronghold, or overeating as a stronghold, or not being the leader you were called to be, to the Lord is our stronghold. And within that stronghold, that means that it's a fortified, and fortified is building walls that protect from attacks come around from the enemy. So how do we become fortified men? Going through a process of fortification so that we can walk in freedom and be called and walk as the husband, man, father, and leader that we've been called. It is doable. It is available. You just got to do the one thing, and you have to physically walk from darkness into light. You have to make a move. Otherwise, you will stay stuck. So that is my challenge and my charge for any men today struggling with who they are.
Wow, Kevin, thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of the Impact Players Linking Shields podcast. Don't do this thing alone, guys. Find your band of brothers, link shields with other men who are fighting the good fight, pursuing the same goals that you're pursuing, and know that you are not alone. Whatever your struggle is, there is great power in bringing it out of the darkness and into the light with the fellowship of other men who love you, care about you, and want to see you thrive and succeed. So guys, thank you again for being a part of this. Kevin, thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing more from you and hope to have you back on the show in the future. But for everybody else out there, God bless, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you for joining us for the Impact Players Linking Shields podcast. We hope you're inspired to become a better husband, father, and leader. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave a 5-star review, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Stay connected and continue your journey with us. Visit impactplayers.org for more resources and updates. Thanks for being a part of the Impact Players community. Keep thriving in the relationships that matter most.